The superstar calls. The school grass in high school has become a big star. On a variety show. He sang a song and said it was dedicated to the girl he had a crush on in high school. I was sitting in a small restaurant eating noodles, and shook my head with a smile. Anyway. It can't be me. But the next second. My phone rang. Andrew debuted at the age of 19. In just 5 years. He has become a big star known to every household. When I was eating noodles in a small noodle restaurant, his variety show was playing on the wall-mounted TV. In the latest episode, he sang My Desk Mate, and said it was dedicated to the girl he had a crush on in high school. It caused a sensation. The star guests sitting around all jeered and asked him to tell the name of that girl. Of course, he didn't say. I was a bit dazed. And the noodles on my chopsticks had cooled down. Because I was once his desk mate. But it can't be me anyway. I am just an ordinary person. Even a very bad person. There is a huge gap between him and me. Having been his desk mate during high school is already the peak of my life. I buried my head and ate that mouthful of noodles. It was cold and the taste was very bad, making me feel a bit sick. Bad memories came flooding back. The memory of being pushed into the toilet during my period and having cold water poured on my head. The girl who poured water on me later also became a star. Now, she is highly praised as the only pure gasman in the domestic entertainment industry. In an interview, she choked up and said that she was bullied in high school. During her period, she was splashed with cold water. Finally, she suffered from severe depression. Until now, she still can't get over it. It was once on the hot search. Many stars came out to support her and posted on Weibo to oppose school bullying. Oh, that girl also participated in that variety show. When Andrew was singing, she was sitting on the grass and clapping. Come to think of it, she was also Andrew's desk mate. When people were jeering and asking Andrew to tell the name of that girl, she should be looking forward to hearing her own name. Right? I paid and walked out of the store. I had completely forgotten what I was thinking just now. The weather was so cold. I just wanted to go home and warm up. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello? Is this Miss Tina? We are from the program, Autumn Date. Congratulations on becoming our special guest, and getting the opportunity to record with many big stars. I frowned. Autumn Date is Andrew's variety show. Recently, there have been several cases of fraud in the name of the program group. I didn't expect to encounter it. You say you are the director. Then I can also say I am an international superstar. It was already dark. And I was a bit late getting home. My elder brother was worried and was waiting for me downstairs on purpose. Are you on the phone? It's a scam call. The person who claimed to be the director on the other end of the phone was still trying to prove his identity when I mercilessly hung up. Just block it. My elder brother rubbed my head, took my backpack, and walked upstairs. Since I almost died that year, he has always been very afraid of losing me. Like taking care of a crystal ball that could break at any time. As I went upstairs, I was complaining to my elder brother about things at school. Just started my first year of doctoral studies. I am scolded by my tutor every day. I am almost doubting my life. My phone rang again. It was still an unfamiliar number. But not the previous one. My elder brother was a bit annoyed. Hang up and block it. Really? These scammers are endless. However, looking at the screen, I don't know why, but I always feel that this time it's different. In the end, I still answered. Hello? I greeted hesitantly. There was silence on the other end of the phone for 2 seconds. Long time no see. Classmate Tina. The familiar yet unfamiliar voice was like a gust of wind blowing open a long closed door. Soon, adrenaline soared. My heart was beating very fast. I stood still, numb in hands and feet. Why don't you speak? Is it a bit abrupt to call you suddenly? No. Andrew's call made me a bit at a loss. Although we were classmates once, we only had classes together. There was no personal relationship at all. No matter how you think about it. There can't be any intersection again. I took a breath and tried to be more natural. Big star. Why are you calling me? Andrew smiled. The voice was extremely pleasant. I was stunned. Did he ever smile like this in my memory? It's been so long. I forgot. When he was my desk mate. It seemed that he was always sleeping soundly. I want to invite you as a flying guest to record the program with me. The director has called you. But you refused. Sorry. I thought it was a scammer. It does seem a bit like a scammer. Did it scare you? Yes. A little. He smiled and then changed the topic. So, are you willing to come? Classmate Tina. I was a bit panicked. Recording a program and appearing on TV is quite frightening for a person with social anxiety. Moreover, going to see an old classmate, who is successful and famous in a disheveled state always makes me feel timid. I can't. Forget it. Why? Don't you really want to see me? He was so sincere that he was almost humble. I quickly denied. No, how could that be? I just think it's too sudden. I haven't thought it through yet. Well, then, please think it over carefully. I really want to see you very much. I was stunned. He paused and added, there are other old classmates. I really want to see all of you. Suddenly, memories that had long been lost in the sea of time popped into my mind. One year, in spring, an invitation appeared on my desk. It's my birthday on Saturday. Come to my house and have fun? 17-year-old Andrew sat on the desk and said casually. Andrew comes from an illustrious family. His friends are either rich or noble. This invitation should not have appeared on my desk under any circumstances. Seeing that I didn't speak, Andrew added, all the classmates in the class will come. Anyway, it's up to you. He inferently jumped off the desk and went to play basketball with a few friends. Did I go later? Yes. I did. I took a cheap gift and wore plain clothes and walked to the outside of that luxurious manor that I had never seen before. At the door, I realized that when other classmates came to the birthday party, they came in luxurious private cars and wore expensive custom-made clothes. This is a gathering of the powerful. There is not a single commoner like me. So when I walked halfway, I turned around and left. I didn't even say happy birthday to Andrew. But I think he won't care and may not even notice. Originally, it was just an invitation, by the way. We weren't even friends. What happened after that day? I can't remember clearly. It seems he never talked to me again. However, he didn't talk to me much anyway. A few days later, I transferred schools and never saw him again. The memory ends here. On the other end of the phone, Andrew is still waiting for my reply. I hesitated for a moment and nodded. Okay. I'll think about it first. My elder brother heard the whole conversation. When I put away my phone and went upstairs, he asked me, is it that very popular dating show recently? You won't go, right? No. Then I can rest assured. I walked up the stairs with heavy steps. However, my heart seemed to be held back by something. After walking up 7 steps, I stopped and tightly grasped the handrail. No, brother. I want to go. My elder brother widened his eyes. Are you serious? Don't you know that Roxanne is also on that show? Aren't you disgusted? I know. My hand trembled slightly. But my heart was firm once again. However, brother, I still want to go. Moreover, I can't always be a coward. On the plane, I had a dream. In the dream, I returned to my high school classroom and took a nap on the desk. Someone leaned close to my ear and softly said, Tina, I like you. I opened my eyes. The light and shadow were hazy. And there was no one in front of me. Only the white curtain swayed gently with the breeze. Tina, wake up quickly. We're here. My elder brother shook me awake vigorously and carried me like a chicken. holding a bag in one hand and me in the other. He insisted on accompanying me and also called a few good brothers, saying he wanted to protect me. Whoever bullied me, they would beat them up. After getting off the plane, the program team sent a special car to pick me up. After a short rest for a few hours, in the evening, I was pulled to the beach to participate in the shooting. The program team made 3 huge paper houses to look like classrooms. There is a flying guest hidden in each room. For the effect of the program, even I don't know who is hidden in the other 2 rooms. During the shooting, I hid behind the door, nervous and sweating on my palms. Soon, I heard a familiar voice. Andrew, Roxanne, and a few familiar stars. I was a bit nervous. It's been so long since we last met. I don't know if I will be nervous later, or if I will look like a country bumpkin. Outside, the host asked, "Who do you hope to see?" Roxanne seemed very excited. It seemed that she still didn't know who had come. Soon, the first door was opened. The host asked, "Do you remember the name of this old classmate?" Andrew paused and said, "Long time no see." Andrew. I couldn't see. But when I heard this name, I was stunned for a moment. Andrew? Isn't he that delinquent in our class? If I remember correctly, he seems to be Roxanne's sycophant. I listened carefully. It was very lively outside. Roxanne was also laughing. But she was obviously a bit nervous. Maybe she was afraid that he would say something he shouldn't. However, Andrew was surprisingly cooperative and said only good things about her. She gradually relaxed. After a while, another door was opened. I heard Roxanne's surprised scream, "Jolie!" The string in my mind suddenly tightened. Jolie was my roommate when I lived in the school dormitory in high school and also Roxanne's good friend. Every time Roxanne bullied me, she would help, including the time when she poured cold water on me. Why did they invite her? Did Roxanne invite her? Bad memories invaded again. And I felt a bit nauseous. After interacting and chatting for a while outside, I heard Andrew's slightly urging voice, "Let's open the last door first. There is another classmate who has been waiting inside for a long time." The host then signaled me to open the door and come out. "Let's welcome the third guest. Which old classmate is it? Let's look forward to it. 1, 2, 3. I took a deep breath, adjusted my state, and pushed the door open and came out. Recently, the temperature has dropped sharply. But to look good on the show, I only wore a white dress and a windbreaker on the outside. At the moment I opened the door, the wind blew, making my dress and skirt flutter. Unexpectedly, I received exclamations from the onlookers. I looked up and saw Andrew at once. He was wearing a white shirt. Behind him was the brilliant light. He looked at me with a smile, as if there were a galaxy between us. "Classmate Tina. Long time no see." That tall and thin figure immediately pulled me back to high school. I seemed to see again the teenager who always wore headphones, leaned by the window, and didn't know what he was thinking. I was lost in thought for a moment and nodded gently. Andrew introduced to everyone. "This is classmate Tina. She is the top student in my class." He didn't say that I was his desk mate. Maybe it was to avoid suspicion. Or maybe he had long forgotten. I looked away and saw Roxanne. She stood aside. For a moment, her face was uglier than if she had eaten a fly. The only pure white jasmine in the domestic entertainment industry was elected by vote. If Roxanne hadn't exposed her being bullied in high school and gained a wave of pity, she probably wouldn't have been elected. Now when she sees me, her once dark history, her mood is probably very complicated. But soon, she covered it up and ran over to hug me. "Oh my God. Tina. It's actually you. I miss you so much." I returned the hug with a straight face. "Nice to see you, Roxanne." Old classmates reunited, each with ulterior motives. We hugged each other and smiled more falsely than pleasing leaders at a banquet. After exchanging greetings, The host asked the five of us to come on stage and take a group photo. There were too many people off stage and several cameras. I was a bit nervous. Jolie suddenly took my hand and smiled at me. "Don't be nervous." I looked at her warily, but found that her gaze was actually very gentle and sincere. She was completely different from the person who stood beside Roxanne and humiliated me to the extreme. "What's going on?" I didn't respond and silently pulled my hand back. After taking the photo, we entered the next session. We sat around the fireplace, chatting while barbecuing. This is a warm-hearted program. In this session, sometimes many secrets hidden in the hearts of stars can be dug out, which is the most popular part for the audience. I chose a place to sit down. Around me were a bunch of familiar or unfamiliar stars. It was quite novel. There was a bit of space beside me. I wanted to move over a bit to give more space to the people next to me. At this moment, Andrew suddenly appeared. "I'll sit here." After he finished speaking, he explained again. "I'm in charge of barbecuing tonight. This place is more convenient for operation." The warm light of the bonfire outlined his delicate face, like a god descending. He was so handsome that it made people stare in a daze. Suddenly, I remembered choosing seats in my sophomore year. It was an afternoon. In the sunlight of the setting sun, dancing dust floated. Andrew walked straight to the position next to me and sat down. At that time, I was also secretly surprised. What? The school grass actually sat next to me? Just like now. However, at that time, he didn't greet me but directly lay on the desk and fell asleep soundly. "Okay." I nodded and squeezed to the side to make more space for him. While others were chatting, Andrew was quietly turning the ingredients, brushing oil, and sprinkling seasonings. His movements were unhurried, as if completing a work of art. I was a bit uncomfortable. Holding an ear of corn, I buried my head and ate hard. Until someone called me. "What was Andrew like in high school?" A female singer sitting next to me suddenly asked me. I looked up. Andrew looked at me with a smile in his eyes. It made my heart tremble for a moment. I quickly turned my head and looked at the female singer. "He is more or less the same as now. At that time, he was the school grass. Handsome and with good grades. He was a big star in our school. Last time Andrew said that he had a female classmate he had a crush on in high school. Do you know her?" All the curious gazes gathered on me. Since Andrew debuted, he has never revealed his love life. So everyone is quite curious about this question. But how could I know who he likes? I shook my head like a rattled drum. I don't know this at all. The female singer was a bit disappointed. Then she asked and more persistently, "Can you reveal a little bit? For example, what's unique about that girl?" I held the corn and silently looked at him. For some reason, I was a bit curious. Opposite, Roxanne was also looking at him expectantly. But Andrew just smiled faintly and cut the chicken wings patiently. "Her? She is unique everywhere." It was like saying nothing. The female singer asked again. "Then if you had to describe her with a flower, what would it be?" This sentence was obvious. Roxanne is known as the only pure jasmine. When she asked this, she wanted to know if the girl Andrew had a crush on was Roxanne. Because they were high school classmates and also desk mates. Many people suspected that the girl was Roxanne. But Andrew shook his head. "She is not a flower." He did what he was doing unhurriedly without looking at anyone and said, "That's too fragile. It's not like her." Roxanne was stunned and her eyes gradually became disappointed. She knew that Andrew wasn't talking about her. As for who it was, I didn't know either. He said that flowers were too fragile and not like her. So, was the one he liked a tomboy? I thought for a long time and couldn't think of anyone in the class who fit the description. Then it should be someone I didn't know. However, the one who could make Andrew have a crush and think about her for so many years must be very beautiful. The female singer asked again. "Then did you confess to her?" I thought. What a stupid question. It was already said that it was a crush. If he had confessed, Would it still be called a crush? But Andrew said. I confessed. But she didn't hear it. Soon. He looked up and asked with a smile. Who wants chicken wings? A bunch of people rushed over. Me. 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 I was pushed to the edge. My mind was still thinking about his words. I confessed. But she didn't hear it. It seems that girl has poor hearing. In this way, Andrew is actually a bit pitiful. After finally expressing his love, the person didn't hear it. And thus they missed each other forever. To be held in his heart and cared about for so many years. It's quite enviable. I lowered my eyes and looked at the fire, feeling a moment of loss in my heart. Since nothing more could be asked from Andrew, soon the topic naturally transitioned to Roxanne. The female singer asked me again, what was Roxanne like in high school? Roxanne looked at me, smiling. But the nervousness and threat in her eyes were almost overflowing. Of course. I wouldn't tell about the thing that she united everyone to isolate me. It definitely can't be broadcast. I just smiled and said sweetly, Roxanne is extremely popular. Because she is beautiful, has a cheerful personality, and is generous to friends. She is very popular. Every time there is an election for class cadres or student representatives, she always gets the most votes. Jolie and Andrew sitting on the other side also agreed and said, Roxanne is the goddess of everyone. Roxanne breathed a sigh of relief. However, she completely didn't notice that what I said contradicted what she said when she was building her persona a few months ago. She lies so much that she can't even remember what she has said. Everyone chatted and laughed. And time passed quickly. At around 10 o'clock, we each went back to the hotel to rest. Roxanne ran over and took my arm, insisting on seeing me back. The camera was still filming. She smiled sweetly and asked me about my well-being, like a pair of long-lost good friends. When we reached the hotel entrance and the camera was removed, she finally showed her true colors. Tina, I don't know how the director team got in touch with you. And I don't know why you came. In short, be careful with what you say and do. If you accidentally say something wrong and get cyberbullied or retaliated against, affecting your normal life, don't blame me for not warning you. The way she turns her face faster than flipping a book is quite ridiculous. I couldn't help laughing and imitating her innocent look in front of people and said, Thank you for your reminder. As expected. You really take me as a good friend and think of everything for me. Who is your good friend? Don't pretend to be a white lotus here. Isn't it disgusting? She pushed me away in disgust and still wanted to say something. Coincidentally, my brother came down. The man over 6 feet tall walked towards her with a cold look in his eyes. Little sister, what are you doing? Roxanne took a step back and swallowed the words she wanted to say. She didn't want to suffer this immediate loss. She pursed her lips and only said in a low voice, Tina, that's all I have to say. In short, be well behaved and don't talk nonsense. It's good for both of us. After saying that, she glanced at my brother and quickly got into the nanny van and left. Did she bully you? No. I'm telling you. If she dares to do anything to you, I'll give her a left hook and a right hook and beat her until she can't tell a human from an animal. That's right. My brother sent me back to my room with relief. At the door, there was an unexpected guest. Hi. Tina. Jolie looked at me as if she had made a big decision. I stopped and looked at her warily. She quickly explained. I don't mean anything else. I just want to say a few words and then leave. I didn't speak. She bit her lip and said, Tina, I know you hate me. Back then, I did a lot of bad things and hurt you a lot. Maybe you have forgotten. No, I haven't forgotten. Oh, right. How could it be forgotten? She nervously clutched the corner of her clothes. I haven't forgotten either. In fact, in the past few years, I have always felt guilty. Every time I think of what I did in high school, I want to slap myself a few times. Really, I'm sorry. I was a little surprised. Was she repenting? I looked at her quietly. Jolie pursed her lips and lowered her eyes in guilt. After a while, she raised her head and her eyes suddenly became firm. Tina, I know you won't forgive me. However, I will make up for my mistake. People who make mistakes will definitely pay the price. After saying that, she turned around and ran away. I looked at her back and couldn't tell what I was feeling for a moment. After a while, I turned to look at my brother. She won't go jump into the sea, will she? My brother frowned. Who cares? Don't take it too hard. You should rest early. Okay. I entered the room and followed my brother's advice and locked the door from the inside. Leaning against the door, I was lost in thought. It's quite strange, isn't it? When she apologized to me, I actually felt no emotion at all in my heart. It was so light that I didn't feel relieved at all. Probably because the apology came too late and I don't need it anymore. Suddenly, my phone vibrated and I was startled. It was actually Andrew. Have you arrived? He asked. This was the first time we exchanged messages since adding each other on WeChat the day before yesterday. Arrived. I sent a little sun emoji. He sent me a little sun back. So cute. Do you have time tomorrow morning? Let's go out for a walk. The scenery here is very beautiful. Is he asking me out? The air suddenly froze and my heart was beating so fast that it seemed to fly out. Soon he sent another message. It wasn't convenient to film last night. I didn't entertain you all properly. You all? So, Andrew and Jolie will also go? What was I thinking just now? I let out a gentle breath and replied to him. Sure. Okay. Then see you at 9 tomorrow. Good night. He sent a sleeping moon emoji and ended the conversation. As my nervousness relaxed, I realized that my palms were already soaked. I didn't sleep well all night. The next morning, I went downstairs with 2 dark circles under my eyes. I confessed. But she didn't hear it. It seems that girl has poor hearing. In this way, Andrew is actually a bit pitiful. After finally expressing his love, the person didn't hear it. And thus they missed each other forever. Having been held in his heart and cared about for so many years, it's quite enviable. I lowered my eyes and looked at the fire, feeling a moment of loss in my heart. Since nothing more could be asked from Andrew, soon the topic naturally transitioned to Roxanne. The female singer asked me again. What was Roxanne like in high school? Roxanne looked at me, smiling. But the nervousness and threat in her eyes were almost overflowing. Of course. I wouldn't tell about the thing that she united everyone to isolate me. It definitely can't be broadcast. I just smiled and said sweetly. Roxanne is extremely popular. Because she is beautiful, has a cheerful personality, and is generous to friends. She is very popular. Every time there is an election for class cadres or student representatives, she always gets the most votes. Jolie and were sitting on the other side also agreed and said, Roxanne is the goddess of everyone. Roxanne breathed a sigh of relief. However, she completely didn't notice that what I said contradicted what she said when she was building her persona a few months ago. She lies so much that she can't even remember what she has said. Everyone chatted and laughed. And time passed quickly. At around 10 o'clock, we each went back to the hotel to rest. Roxanne ran over and took my arm, insisting on seeing me back. The camera was still filming. She smiled sweetly and asked me about my well-being, like a pair of long-lost good friends. When we reached the hotel entrance and the camera was removed, she finally showed her true colors. Tina, I don't know how the director team got in touch with you. And I don't know why you came. In short, be careful with what you say and do. If you accidentally say something wrong, and get cyber-bullied or retaliated against, affecting your normal life, don't blame me for not warning you. The way she turns her face faster than flipping the book is quite ridiculous. I couldn't help laughing and imitating her innocent look in front of people and said, Thank you for your reminder. As expected. You really take me as a good friend and think of everything for me. Who is your good friend? Don't pretend to be a White Lotus here. Isn't it disgusting? She pushed me away in disgust and still wanted to say something. Coincidentally, my brother came down. The man over 6 feet tall walked towards her with a cold look in his eyes. Little sister, what are you doing? Roxanne took a step back and swallowed the words she wanted to say. She didn't want to suffer this immediate loss. She pursed her lips and only said in a low voice, Tina. That's all I have to say. In short, be well behaved and don't talk nonsense. It's good for both of us. After saying that, she glanced at my brother and quickly got into the nanny van and left. Did she bully you? No. I'm telling you, if she dares to do anything to you, I'll give her a left hook and a right hook and beat her until she can't tell a human from an animal. That's right. My brother sent me back to my room with relief. At the door, there was an unexpected guest. Hi, Tina. Jolie looked at me as if she had made a big decision. I stopped and looked at her warily. She quickly explained, I don't mean anything else. I just want to say a few words and then leave. I didn't speak. She bit her lip and said, Tina, I know you hate me. Back then, I did a lot of bad things and hurt you a lot. Maybe you have forgotten. No, I haven't forgotten. Oh, right. How could it be forgotten? She nervously clutched the corner of her clothes. I haven't forgotten either. In fact, in the past few years, I have always felt guilty. Every time I think of what I did in high school, I want to slap myself a few times. Really. I'm sorry. I was a little surprised. Was she repenting? I looked at her quietly. Jolie pursed her lips and lowered her eyes in guilt. After a while, she raised her head and her eyes suddenly became firm. Tina, I know you won't forgive me. However, I will make up for my mistake. People who make mistakes will definitely pay the price. After saying that, she turned around and ran away. I looked at her back and couldn't tell what I was feeling for a moment. After a while, I turned to look at my brother. She won't go jump into the sea. Will she? My brother frowned. Who cares? Don't take it to heart. You should rest early. Okay. I entered the room and followed my brother's advice and locked the door from the inside. Leaning against the door, I was lost in thought. It's quite strange, isn't it? When she apologized to me, I actually felt no emotion at all in my heart. It was so light that I didn't feel relieved at all. Probably because the apology came too late, and I don't need it anymore. Suddenly, my phone vibrated and I was startled. It was actually Andrew. Have you arrived? He asked. This was the first time we exchanged messages since adding each other on WeChat the day before yesterday. Arrived. I sent a little sun emoji. He sent me a little sun back. So cute. Do you have time tomorrow morning? Let's go out for a walk. The scenery here is very beautiful. Is he asking me out? The air suddenly froze and my heart was beating so fast, but it seemed to fly out. Soon he sent another message. It wasn't convenient to film last night. I didn't entertain you all properly. You all? So, Andrew and Jolie will also go? What was I thinking just now? I let out a gentle breath and replied to him. Sure. Okay. Then see you at 9 tomorrow. Good night. He sent a sleeping moon emoji and ended the conversation. As my nervousness relaxed, I realized that my palms were already soaked. I didn't sleep well all night. The next morning, I went downstairs with 2 dark circles under my eyes, and rode a bicycle and arrived as promised. Today he is wearing a white shirt with a gray sweatshirt over it. Looking casual and lazy. I took a light breath and walked towards him. But suddenly my backpack was pulled. My elder brother forcibly opened my backpack. Wait a minute. Come on. Put two steamed buns in. What? No need. How can you be on an empty stomach? These buns are from the hotel and taste good. No. At least put a bottle of Wahaha in. No. I pulled back my backpack and quickly ran towards Andrew. Very embarrassing. Andrew glanced at my elder brother and said nothing. He patted the back seat of the bicycle. Get on. I hesitated for a moment, sat on it, and carefully grabbed the edge of the cushion. Andrew glanced at it and said nothing. He started pedaling and set off. Where are the others? I asked. Oh, them. They're not coming. They said they don't have time. No time? Everyone took 2 days off specifically for the shooting. What could they be so busy with? I looked at the back of Andrew's head and still didn't ask in the end. Then where are we going? Just take a stroll. His tone was indifferent. Oh, I shut my mouth and silently looked at the beach in the distance. The sun is very good and seagulls are gathering. But Andrew seems a bit glum, and the journey is very depressing. I didn't dare to speak either. After a long time, he suddenly asked, Is he good to you? It was as if I had been suddenly hit on the head. After being stunned for a while, I asked, Who? Your boyfriend. Eh? Where do I have a boyfriend? After thinking for a moment, I suddenly realized. He must be referring to my elder brother. You mean the one just now? That's my elder brother. He insisted on coming along. Alas. Your elder brother? He was stunned for a moment and then gave an awkward smile. So it is. Somehow, the atmosphere suddenly became a bit lighter. He pedaled cheerfully. Suddenly he said, Look, the sea over there is so blue. Indeed. How can it be so blue? And the sand is so white. The two of us jetted awkwardly from time to time. Andrew rode his bike through the sandy beach, coconut grove, and deserted path and stopped outside a school by the sea. Because of the Mid-Autumn Festival holiday, there were few people in the school. The gate was open and no one was in charge. Let's go in and take a stroll. Andrew didn't wait for my answer and went in directly. The school is very large and a bit run down. Looking at the buildings on both sides, and the grade lists pasted on the walls, I had a sense of time travel. The layout of the school is very similar to our high school. Our classroom at that time was very similar to here. He suddenly said. Ah. Yes, I nodded. Andrew had already lifted his foot and started climbing the stairs. I quickly followed. Unexpectedly, I had a feeling of going back to school for class. There were rows of classrooms on the side. It seemed that this was also a high school classroom. Each desk was piled with a thick sack of books. Above the blackboard, there was a banner that read, As long as you don't study to death, study hard to death. I stopped by the window of a classroom. By the blackboard in this classroom, there was a densely written class schedule. At the bottom, there was also the name of the student on duty. I suddenly remembered a small incident. Probably one night in senior year. Andrew was on duty, and was writing the class schedule for the next day on the blackboard. I was sitting at my seat doing practice questions. Suddenly, I heard a boy laugh and say, Hey, Andrew, you have to change the name of the student on duty too. At that time, Andrew had already put down the chalk and was about to leave. After being told that, he turned his head to look. I looked towards the blackboard and suddenly found that my name was written in the place for the student on duty. However, I was on duty just last week. My name shouldn't have stayed there for so long. Moreover, that wasn't my handwriting either. Got it. Do I need you to tell me? Andrew impatiently glanced at that person, picked up the eraser, swiped and erased my name, and hastily wrote Andrew, and then left with his bag. I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought maybe it was someone's prank. Or perhaps, on the day I was on duty, I accidentally wrote such beautiful blackboard writing, and coincidentally, it just hadn't been erased. I withdrew my gaze, and it fell on a desk by the window. A typical high school student's desk was piled with books and was scribbled on messily with pens or knives. On the desk by the window, the words study hard were engraved. How strange. Some things have clearly been forgotten. But seeing these things, they suddenly come to mind again. There are also 2 words engraved on my desk. It was a math class after the monthly exam. The math teacher was giving the answers on the podium. Both Andrew and I got full marks and were not in the mood to listen. We were each lying on our seats, half asleep. Out of boredom, I picked up a pen and scribbled randomly on the test paper. Andrew's head suddenly leaned over. Writing a poem? I was startled and hurriedly covered the test paper. No. It's lyrics. Oh. Andrew turned his head away. Immediately. He turned back again. I have written many songs. In the future, I might become a great musician. My songs will be played on TV and in small stores on the street. Inexplicably, I thought. He asked again. What do you want to do? Holding a pen, I replied to him stiffly and uneasily. I want to study hard and get into Tsinghua University. That's really remarkable. He chuckled softly. The sunlight filtered through the gap in the window and fell on the broken hair on his forehead, glittering. He was a bit too good-looking. I didn't dare to look at him. You will definitely be able to get into Tsinghua University. As he said this, he took out a utility knife from his desk, leaned over, and carved the word Tsinghua on my desk. At that time, he was probably just too bored. But those two words really did inspire me. Thinking of these, the corners of my mouth couldn't help but curve up. I looked at his back. Andrew has probably forgotten all these things long ago, right? As if sensing something, Andrew suddenly turned around and looked at me. What are you smiling at? Nothing. I was startled and quickly followed him. What are you smiling at? Tell me. No. I ran in front of him and pointed inside the classroom to change the topic. Look. That textbook is the same as ours. Yes. He smiled and silently followed behind me, listening to my nonsense. After walking for a while, he suddenly asked me, Tina, why did you suddenly transfer schools in senior year? I was stunned and stopped. Looking back at him, I transferred schools in the spring of my senior year. On the day I left, I didn't tell anyone. After all, who cares? Andrew smiled, but there was something suppressed in his eyes. It doesn't matter if you don't want to say. I just thought it was very sudden. After all, we were desk mates. So that's it. The desk mate suddenly disappeared. So it felt very strange. There was no other reason. I pursed my lips and pretended to be okay and said, because of some family reasons, I transferred. I didn't tell anyone. After all, I don't have any friends. Aren't we friends? He was very surprised. Are we friends? I was also very surprised. My heart started beating rapidly. After looking at each other for a few seconds, he suddenly smiled self-deprecating lie. Sorry. I may have thought too highly of myself. I quickly explained. It's not like that. It's okay. Don't feel guilty. I don't blame you. He smiled and said, it's just that without you in the graduation photo, it always feels like something is missing. I kept to photos. I thought that maybe one day, you would want them. As he said this, he took out a palm-sized photo from his pocket. Something exploded in my head. He kept the graduation photo for me? For a female classmate like me with so little interaction? I stiffly took the photo and saw many familiar faces, including those I hated the most and the teachers who were once very kind to me. Andrew stood in the last row, looking indifferent, as if the whole class owed him money. From above, his voice came, Tina, why didn't you come to my birthday that year? I bit my lip and my face flushed instantly. I was too embarrassed to tell him that actually I went. But on the way, I felt I was too poor and went back. How embarrassing. Sorry. I just suddenly had something to do. I thought that with so many people celebrating your birthday, one less person like me wouldn't matter to you. Is that what you think? He looked at me in disbelief. After a few moments, he gritted his teeth and couldn't hold back after all. Do you know that I waited for you all day? I was stunned and looked up at him. He waited for me all day? How could it be? At that time, he obviously just invited me casually. At that time, he was polite and distant to me. So distant that I never thought I could get even a tiny bit of his attention. Sorry. I really didn't know. My voice was so low that I could barely hear it myself. Andrew shook his head. The suppressed emotions for a long time erupted at once. I never hold any birthday parties. But that year was my coming-of-age ceremony. I really hope you could come. So, I invited the whole class. But in the end, everyone came except you. Later, when I returned to school, you didn't have a single explanation. Even, you transferred schools without a word. Tina, what exactly happened that year? Can't you tell me? Andrew stared at me tightly. The interrogating eyes were like heavy hammers. His first sentence stunned me. I didn't even listen to the following sentences. My head was dizzy and it felt like I was stepping on cotton under my feet. What did he just say? The birthday party was held so that I could go. Why? Suddenly, an idea popped into my mind. Could the girl he has a crush on be me? How could it be? Obviously, I'm just an inconspicuous female classmate. I looked at him in panic and couldn't say a word for a long time. Someone came over and the stagnant atmosphere was broken at once. Hey! Who are you? You can't visit here. Andrew looked over, calmed down, and apologized awkwardly. Sorry. We didn't know. The person who came looked at his good attitude and softened his voice a bit. You can take a walk on the playground. You can't come upstairs. Okay. Thank you. We bowed slightly to the person who came and went downstairs and left the school in unison. There was an awkward silence all the way. No one else knew that Andrew took me out. At noon, the director's team treated us to a meal. I sat very far away from him, with an Atlantic Ocean in between. I wanted to talk to him several times but couldn't find an opportunity. Logically speaking, our shooting has ended. But in the evening, it happened to be the Mid-Autumn Festival. The program team was going to hold a live evening party. So we were invited to stay for one more day. My back began to feel chilly. If those hooligans hadn't shown mercy back then, I can't even imagine what would have happened to me. In the video, Roxanne widened her eyes and said, "You dare." Then, she immediately changed her words. No. There was never such a thing. Andrew, you're just a hooligan. Who would believe your words? You outside the picture. A voice suddenly came. What if I testify? It was actually Jolie. She slowly walked into the picture, looked at Roxanne, and said slowly, "Roxanne, I have carefully saved all the chat records, photos, and videos from back then." Jolie's appearance broke down Roxanne's defense. She asked her incredulously, "Jolie, why?" Jolie pressed her lips tightly. After a long time, she said, "Because I don't want to be your accomplice anymore." Roxanne, people always have to pay the price for the mistakes they have made. Roxanne trembled. Her expression distorted. No one will believe it. So what if you expose it? As long as I use a little public relations, I can suppress it immediately. I can still be my big star. And neither of you will have an easy time. Jolie looked at her pityingly. Then, she pointed her finger at the camera. But, Roxanne, your every word and deed is being watched by millions of people. Guess if this matter can be suppressed? What? Roxanne froze, slowly turned her head, looked at the camera, and then, like crazy, rushed over and picked up the device hidden behind the rock. The screen was filled with curses at her. Looking at those barrage of comments, she screamed in panic. "No. I didn't. It's not like this." That face was hideous and terrifying, as if it wanted to swallow us behind the screen. Subsequently, the lens shook violently, was spun and thrown into the sea. The picture instantly turned pitch black. The program team was also in chaos. The director and other celebrities couldn't care less about the arranged live broadcast, and went out to look for people in a panic. I returned to Weibo. The discussions about rocks in here had already exploded. And there were overwhelming insults against her. Her acting career is over. It's very satisfying. But who did it? I thought for a long time and screened through Roxanne's enemies one by one. But I didn't think it was possible. Until I remembered what Andrew said at noon. He said, "Singing alone is not enough. I have prepared another gift for you." My eyelid twitched. Although I couldn't believe it. But a strong premonition still drove me to stand up and walk towards the seaside. The place where Roxanne went. This morning, Andrew and I had just been there. Passing through a coconut grove. I saw Roxanne on the distant beach. Going crazy and tearing with Jolie. Going up along the cliff beside the beach. At a high place. I really saw that thin and tall figure that almost merged into the night. He was silently watching this farce. I walked towards him. The wind by the sea was very strong. And the reefs were messy. I walked unsteadily. Hearing the noise. Andrew slowly turned around. Behind him was the silver moon hanging on the sea level. As cold as him. "Did you do this?" I asked him. He looked at me. His voice very soft. "Yes." Although I had already guessed it. I was still shocked when I heard him admit it. "Why?" He took a light breath. His eyes cold. "Because I accidentally learned that when she was in high school. She united all the girls and isolated the person I cherished so much that I even felt that confessing was a blasphemy for a full 2.5 years. So he already knew. I opened my mouth. My voice trembling slightly. "When did you know?" "Last month." "Last month." When I was shooting an advertisement. I met Jolie. I remember she is your roommate. So I asked her about you. Unexpectedly. She confessed everything to me. He looked at me. Full of guilt. "I'm sorry." At that time. I didn't know anything. I was stunned. Both happy and sad. "It's not your fault." At that time. She was very clever. She only made small moves in the dormitory. When she returned to the classroom. In front of the boys. She never showed hostility towards me. So, many people didn't know. I bit my lip and asked him. "So, you already knew everything. Then why did you ask me this morning?" Silence. After a few moments. He said, "Because I want to hear you tell me in person. I want to know if I am qualified to touch your heart." Such intense eyes made me extremely frightened. I turned my head and didn't know what to say. But he came towards me. Stopped in front of me. Looked down at me. As if trying to look into my heart. "You didn't come to my birthday that year and didn't tell me when you transferred schools. I thought that I was insignificant to you. So, I never looked for you. It wasn't until Jolie told me that they found the birthday present for me in your backpack that I dared to call you. Tina. You actually like me too. Right?" My face flushed instantly. "No. I don't." He pressed. "Really?" I was silent. Then. I looked up at him. Is this answer important? So many years have passed. Of course it's important. He said, even after so many years. My feelings have never changed. So, this answer is very important to me. But I'm just an ordinary person. What is there about me that is worthy of his liking? I stepped back and avoided his gaze. Are you kidding? You are a big star. We are so different. There is no difference between me and you. He reached out and took hold of my shoulder, forcing me to look into his eyes. I have never felt that I have any superiority over you. On the contrary. I think you are very good. So good that I don't dare to reach out and touch you. I have missed once. This time. I don't want to let you go again. Tina. I like you. Can you be my girlfriend? This address vaguely brought me back to that dream. In the bright classroom. With hazy light and shadow. Someone gently said by my ear. Tina. I like you. It turned out that it was not a dream at all. I looked at him. Those sincere and passionate eyes. I completely didn't know what to do. Sorry. I need to think about it. I turned around and ran away. I returned to the hotel. My mind in a mess. I couldn't believe that everything that had just happened was real. I pinched my hand hard, almost drawing blood. My brother was in the hotel lobby, chatting and laughing with the front desk girl. When he saw me, he was startled. "Tina, why are you back?" He ran over, seeing my panicked eyes. His tone became gentle. "What's wrong? What happened?" I didn't say a word. He clenched his fist. "Were you bullied? I'll call who is seeing them down right now." "No, brother." I looked up at him, my eyes rimmed with red. I couldn't tell whether I was happy or sad. Just now, Andrew confessed his love to me. My brother was stunned. Immediately, his eyes lit up. "Really? That's a good thing. Why are you crying?" I twisted my fingers and looked at him, a grieved lie. "But I don't know what he likes about me. He is a big star. But I am such a terrible person. I simply don't deserve him at all." "So, you rejected him?" "Sort of. Just because of this?" "Just because of this." I lowered my head. My brother was silent for a while, and then firmly grasped my shoulders. "Tina, do you know what I think?" I looked up and met his bright eyes. "I have never thought you were bad. On the contrary, I think my sister is extremely awesome. You have been smart since childhood. You learn everything quickly. You are always the first in exams. You were also admitted to Tsinghua University in the college entrance examination. Tsinghua, the dream of so many people. Later, when you were in graduate school, you always said you were not good enough and your tutor always scolded you. But later, didn't you still publish a high-scoring paper and be recommended for a doctoral degree? How many people can achieve these things? Anyway, I can't find anyone more powerful than you. Tina, in my life, I haven't done anything awesome. The only thing I can boast about is that I have an awesome sister. You don't know how proud I am when I mention you outside." I was amused by him. Then I pouted. "But even Mom said that I am a person who is good for nothing everywhere. She also said that I would become a loafer and have no future in my life. But now I'm doing well. Aren't I?" I nodded. I felt much better immediately. He breathed a sigh of relief and asked me, "So, Tina, do you like him?" I thought for a while and blushed. In fact, just after the start of my senior high school, when he asked for my name and talked to me for a few words, I secretly wrote him down in my diary. Later, I found that the gap between us was too big. We are simply not from the same world. So I tore out those few pages. "So, you clearly like him too." "Yes. If I didn't like him, why would I come to see him even though I knew I would meet people I dislike when I received his call?" My brother smiled and patted me on the shoulder. "Then you can boldly like him. No matter whether the outcome is good or bad. You have me behind you." I made up my mind to confess to Andrew. I took out my phone and edited for a long time. I typed thousands of words, and then shamefully deleted them. About an hour later, I still hadn't sent out even a punctuation mark. But suddenly Andrew sent a message. "Come downstairs." I was so scared that my heart almost stopped. My brother saw it, and hurriedly urged me, "Go down quickly." My mind went blank. I hastily tidied up my hair and ran downstairs. Andrew stood in the lobby, looking at me with a smile. I stopped 1 meter away from him, and asked him awkwardly, "Why are you here?" He took out his phone and handed it to me. I took a closer look. My brother had added him at some point, and he had copied down the thous and word essay I had just deleted and sent it to him. I shouldn't have let him sit next to me and watch. With a rush of blood, I blushed from my face to my neck. Andrew laughed. "Tina, I knew it. You have liked me for a long time. I should say something. But I was too shy." Andrew came over and gently hugged me. "Tina, you don't need to cross any chasms. Just be yourself. I will take the rest of the way." I was stunned for a moment, and then reached out and hugged him back. I had never been so peaceful in my heart. Due to Roxanne's live streaming accident, the whole program couldn't be recorded anymore. The next day, the program team withdrew and went back for an emergency meeting. When waiting for a car outside the hotel, I ran into Jolie. She was dragging a suitcase and was about to leave. There were several bruises on her face, which should have been caused by Roxanne. When she saw me, she stopped. But I turned my head and didn't look at her. She held the luggage pole and looked at me, not knowing what she was waiting for. I looked at the sea and listened to the sound of the wind and waves, just thinking that the scenery here is very nice and I may come again. After a while, Jolie lowered her head and left silently. Probably, she and I will never see each other again in this lifetime. After returning to school, I had a fairly peaceful time. Until a month later, Roxanne's agent contacted me. After Roxanne had an accident last time, her reputation plummeted. She lost many endorsements and was also facing hundreds of millions in liquidated damages. Her company tried every means but still couldn't reverse her reputation. Now, they want me to reconcile with Roxanne and issue a statement online. Why on earth did Roxanne treat me like that in the first place? In my memory, it seems that someone compared me with her. She was disdainful to be compared with me. This poor thing. So, she wanted to step on me. Step on me hard until I couldn't lift my head. She succeeded. She almost destroyed me and almost killed me. How could I forgive her? So, I refused to issue a reconciliation statement. Her agent advised me, let her go and let yourself go. Reconcile with the past. You have to walk out of the shadow and live a good life. I found it extremely funny. What makes me walk out of the shadow is time, not my forgiveness. Even if you ask me 1,000 times or 10,000 times, my answer is still never forgive. Because my attitude was too firm. Roxanne's agent had no choice but to go back. This matter caused such a big commotion that even her school director father couldn't help. Roxanne held a grudge against me and asked her father to use his connections to suppress me at my school. I didn't know about this at all until my supervisor opened an email and showed it to me. I nervously explained the whole story to her and was even ready to be scolded. But she pushed her glasses and said, "Don't worry. You are the student I value the most. I trust you absolutely, and I will never allow anyone to reach into my teaching and research office. She has a school director father. And you have an academician supervisor. Don't be afraid. Did I hear it wrong? She said I am the student she values the most? But she clearly scolds me for being useless every day." I felt extremely sad. Maybe this is what Chinese parents are like. Roxanne's school director father is not very capable either. After being rebuffed by my supervisor, he never caused any more trouble. After that, Roxanne disappeared without a trace. Andrews and my relationship was announced a year later. I was quite nervous at first, afraid that his fans would scold me. Fortunately, people nowadays no longer judge everything by money. Some people said that I am nobody and not worthy of Andrew. But immediately someone retorted, "She is a doctor. She is not worthy. Are you worthy?" I really like these people. Suddenly, a message flashed into my phone. Tina, come home for dinner." It was Andrew. He has a house near my school. Most of the time, he lives here and cooks every day and waits for me to come back. I replied with an I packed up my things and went home for dinner. We are already preparing to meet our parents. I don't know what will happen in the future. But anyway, just move forward. I will no longer be timid. End of main text. Andrews at 9:40 in the evening. There were only a few people left in the classroom. It was so quiet that only the rustling sound of chalk falling on the blackboard could be heard. When writing the schedule, Andrew looked back boredly. Tina was sitting by the window, seriously doing her exercises. He thought of something. Looking back, he wrote down the word Tina in beautiful regular script in the place for writing the name of the person on duty. When having a crush on someone, people like to do such boring things. He wanted to see what her reaction would be when she found her name written there as the person on duty. He wanted to see her look confused and bewildered. He wanted to establish some kind of mysterious connection with her in this way. But he didn't want her to know who did it. After writing the last stroke, Andrew wiped his hands satisfactorily and was ready to go home. A boy suddenly passed by and kindly reminded, "Andrew, you have to change the name of the person on duty too." Andrew paused. The classroom was very quiet. When people heard someone talking, they all looked up, including Tina, who had been sitting by the window reading. The plan was ruined. The words Andrew wanted to curse were on the tip of his tongue, but he swallowed them back. "I know. Do I need you to remind me?" He unhappily picked up the eraser and quickly erased Tina's name. Then, he scribbled down his own name. Wasn't it discovered by Tina? While thinking this, he covered up his guilty conscience with a cold face and left the classroom with his bag. Wouldn't she discover his little thought? Probably not. She doesn't care about anything except studying. After returning home, Andrew played the piano for half an hour in the music room. He always couldn't concentrate, so he just played randomly. The next day, during class, Andrew was sitting in the last row, twirling his pen and silently looking at Tina. She likes sitting by the window very much. Every time she chooses a seat, she always sits there. In the afternoon, the sunlight shines through and falls on her, adding a layer of filter to her. She seems to be glowing. Her eyelashes are thick and long. Even sitting so far away, he can see them. Not knowing if she sensed it, she suddenly looked back this way. He quickly withdrew his gaze and looked at the blackboard. Looking over again, Tina had already lowered her head to take notes. That was close. She almost found out. After school, Andrew went downstairs with several boys. A group of girls blocked their way. They pushed a girl to the front and urged her to hand a gift box to Andrew. "Shoo. Andrew." He didn't even see what she looked like clearly before he stepped aside and walked away. The girls sobbed behind him. A boy sighed. "That girl is very beautiful. Andrew, you are too hurtful." Another boy smiled and patted his shoulder. "Stop talking. He has been blocked by girls every day since he was a child. Now he is annoyed when he sees girls." Andrew remained non-committal. He is not annoyed by all girls. Just as he was thinking, someone suddenly poked him. "Hey, isn't that the beautiful and learned girl in your class? She is really good-looking." He frowned. He didn't like others discussing her in such a frivolous tone. "What's so good-looking? Let's go. What time is it?" He put on his headphones and pretended to glance at Tina casually. She was going downstairs holding a stack of books. Her eyes glanced over them and landed faintly in front. She was a boarding student and was going in a different direction from them. Soon she disappeared. So aloof. A classmate sighed. Yes, the way she looks at people is always very distant. Before, some boys asked the girls in the class, "Why does Tina always walk alone?" Those girls said, "Tina? She doesn't play with us." As a top student, maybe she thinks we are too stupid. Andrew thought that Tina was probably the kind of person who had her own spiritual world and didn't like communicating with others. Just like an elder brother in his family. So excellent that there is a gap with people of the same age. A genius and also a weirdo. However, Tina didn't seem to be like this at the beginning of school. At that time, she sat very close to him. When he asked her name, she still smiled and said her name was Tina. Later, she seldom smiled. There is always a hint of melancholy hidden in her eyes. He really wanted to pick up those pieces of melancholy, warm them up for her, and make her gaze warmer. But she always looks like she is keeping people at a distance. In what capacity can he pick them up? Moreover, he has always been proud. If others don't take the initiative, he will definitely not take the initiative. After some days, it's time to choose seats again. Choose according to grades. Tina is of course the first one in the class to choose. Andrew stood not too far, and not too close to her, leaning against the railing, and pretended to glance casually. It was that seat by the window again. Is it so good there? People went in one after another. But no one chose the seat next to Tina. It seems that that seat is cursed. Andrew slept through to exams the next day because he spent the whole night recording songs before the exam. So his ranking is very low. When it was his turn, the seats he usually liked to choose were all taken. His gaze couldn't help drifting towards the seat next to Tina. Don't ask. The reason is that he wants to see if the seat by the window is really that good. After hesitating for a second, he walked straight over. He sat down next to her. When Tina saw him, there seemed to be a hint of surprise in her eyes. He was stunned. No way? Could this seat be reserved for someone else by her? No wonder no one chose it. To avoid her asking him to leave, he directly lay down and slept. She didn't say anything. He succeeded. The seat by the window is really good. The sunlight is warm and sleeping is especially fragrant. Although he became Tina's desk mate, there is still almost no communication between them. First, because Andrew is always sleeping, there is no way. He has to tinker with those musical instruments until midnight every night when he goes back. Second, because Tina is really too quiet. As soon as she lowers her head to read, the air around her quiets down with her. Even if Andrew wants to talk to her, he can't find an opportunity. Until one day in physics class, Tina suddenly rummaged around looking for something. He glanced sideways at the crooked circuit diagram on her test paper and immediately knew what she was looking for. He took his eraser and put it on his right side, remaining silent until Tina saw his eraser herself. She hesitated for a moment and gently pulled his sleeve. "Can I use your eraser?" He pretended to just notice and casually pushed the eraser onto her desk. "Oh. Use it. Thank you." He looked up and saw a rare smile on her face. It melted his heart. He had originally designed a cool expression, but he couldn't put it on anymore. He smiled at her cheaply and said, "Don't mention it." That day when he went back, he was in an inexplicably good mood. Tina smiled at him. Probably she had a good impression of him. Although when he returned to school the next day, her distant eyes poured cold water on him again. He also pretended to be aloof and didn't talk to her. He lay on the table and closed his eyes, pretending to be asleep. After a while, he quietly opened his eyes and looked at Tina. She was doing exercises. Probably she encountered some difficult problem. Her eyebrows were slightly knitted and she was gently biting the pen holder. She looked really beautiful when she was serious. Andrew looked at her a bit absentmindedly. Tina is not a great beauty, but she just happens to be on Andrew's aesthetic point. No matter how he looked at her, she was comfortable. He liked her so much. However, secret love makes people become timid and awkward. Love is surging, but one's mouth is stuck by one's own arrogance and one can never open it. They went back and forth like this, pulling and tugging, half familiar, until a few days before Andrew's birthday. In Senior 3, he also began to take books back and read. But this evening, he couldn't concentrate on reading. The pen in his hand was scribbling randomly and drew the image of Tina. It was too late. Andrew's mother was a bit worried about him, and pushed the door and went in. She saw that little portrait. "Is this the girl you like?" Mom asked him with a smile. He was startled and quickly covered it. "No, I was just drawing casually." "Really?" Mom had already seen through everything. "Does she like you?" Andrew was stunned for a moment. He knew that she must have understood everything. People are sometimes very strange. For some things, they desperately hide them in their hearts. But at the same time, they desperately want to tell others. He was silent for a while, and turned his pen irritably. "I don't know either. Sometimes it feels like she likes me. And sometimes it feels like she doesn't. She is always keeping a distance. Sometimes she gives him hope. And sometimes she makes him lose heart." Mom asked him, "Then ask her." Andrew didn't say anything. Mom couldn't help but smile and patted his shoulder. "It will be your birthday in a few days. Invite her to come to our house and play. Have a good talk and make things clear." The connection between people is very fragile. If some things are not said and hidden in the heart, there may be no chance in a lifetime. He had never brought classmates to his house. Isn't it very strange to invite her to play suddenly? After thinking for a long time, the next day, he went downstairs and asked the housekeeper to customize 45 invitations. The day before his birthday, he put the invitation on Tina's desk. "It's my birthday on Saturday. Come to my house and play?" She was a bit surprised. Looking up, she asked him, "Me? If not her, who else could it be? Did she not want to come?" He sat on the table and decided to morally kidnap her. "Anyway, all the classmates will come. You can decide for yourself." After saying that, he took the basketball and left. After going out, he couldn't help but look back. He saw her holding the invitation and looking at it over and over. She should come too, right? She didn't refuse. Saturday. So many people came to the Shin family for the first time. Mom and Dad were receiving classmates. Andrew, who had invited them in person, was sitting alone on the side, lacking in interest. It was already dark, but Tina still hadn't come. Andrew looked in the direction of the gate. His heart was getting colder and colder. He got up and found the housekeeper for the 5th time and asked in a low voice, "Is there a girl named Tina coming in? Or is there anyone who wants to come in, but is stopped by you?" The housekeeper wiped the sweat. "No, I have gone to the door and looked many times. Really no one else is coming." Andrew didn't say anything anymore. He knew she wouldn't come. So, what else was there to ask? She didn't even want to come to his birthday, and didn't even inform him. In her heart, he was just an insignificant passerby. After a while, he went upstairs and closed the door. He stayed in the music room alone all night. When he returned to school on Monday, he sat down with a cold face and decided not to look at her anymore and extinguished that thought. But how could it be extinguished just because he said so? While he was angry, he secretly expected her to talk to him, give him an explanation, even if she just said happy birthday belatedly. Forget it. As long as she said a word to him, he would forgive her. But she still didn't say anything. She silently read books and did exercises as if nothing had happened, and lay on the table as if all his vitality had been drained. This stalemate lasted for 4 or 5 days. One day during physical education class, Andrew went back to the classroom to get the basketball. There was only Tina in the classroom. She was having her period and had a stomachique. She was lying on the table and sleeping. He walked over silently and looked at her. Her quiet and beautiful sleeping face, occasionally frowning. Probably she dreamed of something bad. He forgave her immediately. Still unwilling. What's wrong with her? She is just a stupid person who loves learning. The wind blew, and the white curtains swayed gently. She was sleeping very deeply. So, even if he said something, she wouldn't be able to hear it. Right? He couldn't help but bend down, approach her ear, and gently say, "Tina, I like you." She didn't respond. He was a bit disappointed. Very strange. He didn't want her to hear it, but also kind of wanted her to hear it. Andrew took the basketball and went out through the back door. When he looked back, she seemed to move a little, but soon she changed her position and continued to sleep. He smiled silently and turned and left. He didn't expect that this would be the last time he saw her. That afternoon, she disappeared. After that, she never returned to school. The teacher said that classmate Tina transferred to another school because of her family. She transferred schools. He was stunned, as if he had stepped on empty air. So, they will never see each other again, right? In fact, he had secretly written down Tina's phone number. After hesitating for many days, he didn't call her. In her life, he was just an insignificant passerby. Suddenly calling her would just be a disturbance to her, right? So, let it be. Let it be. He hid this matter in his heart, and never mentioned it to anyone again. but there was always an empty space in his heart forever. Later, he was admitted to college. In his sophomore year, he released songs and debuted. He started a busy life as an entertainer. He was talented. His songs were pleasant to listen to. And he was highly productive. As expected, he became extremely popular and gradually became a super A-list male star. Creation, concerts, announcements, and invitations filled his life. Gradually, he lost contact with those classmates from the past. The story in high school that didn't have an ending gradually gathered dust deep in his heart. Until one day, he accepted an advertisement. The person in charge of styling him was a classmate from high school. He remembered that her name was Jolie and she was Tina's roommate. Memories rushed back into his mind. Everything was as fresh as if it had just happened. He looked at Jolie, recalled the past, and couldn't help but think of Tina. Is she okay? What is she doing now? Has she seen him on TV? Will she listen to his songs? These questions filled his head. He was shocked. He had never let it go. That secret love had never stopped. He exchanged a few words of greeting with Jolie and couldn't help but start asking her about Tina, and asking why Tina suddenly transferred schools. She was her roommate. She should know something, right? But Jolie's expression was very strange. She hesitated and said that she didn't know anything. After finishing the styling, she disappeared. Until after shooting the advertisement and when he was about to leave, Jolie suddenly pulled him. Her eyes were a bit red. She asked him, "Why are you asking about Tina?" He looked into her eyes. This time, he didn't lie. He said, "In high school, I had a crush on her. Later, she suddenly transferred schools. I'm just curious." Jolie was stunned for a moment, took a deep breath, and told him everything. That was the answer he had been waiting for many years. But he never expected that the truth back then would be like that. It turned out that her distance and her unkindness were all because she was isolated. And Roxanne, the real bully, said in an interview last month that she was bullied, had cold water poured on her, and suffered from depression. At that time, he was still wondering. In his memory, Roxanne had always been very lively and had many friends. How could she be bullied? It turned out that what she was talking about was what she had done to others. Andrew clenched his fist and couldn't stop thinking. How painful it must have been when Tina was poured with cold water. She was already in pain that day. She couldn't even attend physical education class. Sorry. At that time, I did whatever Roxanne said. In fact, I knew that what I did was wrong. But I wanted to fit in with everyone. I didn't want to be isolated like Tina. I got married the year before last and had a child. Looking at my child, I suddenly thought, what if she was treated like that in the future? I would go crazy. Jolie choked up, closed her mouth, and couldn't say anything more. Andrew looked at her. After a long time, he suppressed his anger and left his phone number for her. I will contact you. After returning, he called the director of Autumn Date. This variety show invited dozens of stars including Roxanne. Originally, he had refused. But now, he decided to join. Put on a good show. Make Roxanne pay. Everything went smoothly. Jolie agreed to help. By the way, she also exposed a sycophant named Enru who had done a lot of things for Roxanne. That was a wastrel. After graduating from high school, the family's money was squandered by him. Now he still owes a lot of debts. Andrew found him and persuaded him to participate in the plan with favorable conditions. Then, a week before the Mid-Autumn Festival, he dialed the phone number that he had never dared to dial. Long time no see. Classmate Tina. Please think about it carefully. I really want to see you. Also, other old classmates. Obviously already very mature. But now he is holding the phone, as if he has returned to the age of 17 or 18. At an age when he has a crush but dare not confess. 1 year later, Andrew brings Tina and returns home. Mom and Dad personally cooked a large table of dishes and waited at the door until two figures appeared. Momshu took Tina's hand and smiled so hard that her eyes disappeared. So beautiful. She hit Andrew. When you drew that little portrait, it was like a water monkey. It made me worry for a while. Tina asked blankly. What? Nothing. Nothing. Andrew quickly snatched her over and led her into the house. Dadju stood behind and said to Momshu with a smile, "This brat." After thinking about her for so many years, he finally brought her home. Yes. Momshu held Dadju's arm and looked at them with a smile. So well matched. That night, Andrew and Tina sat on the rooftop looking at the stars. She lay in his arms and chatted with him casually. Drozili. She mentioned Roxanne. She hasn't her asked me recently. I don't know if she will come again in the future. No. She will never come to find you again. She is in big trouble now. The Bai family's investment failed and they owe hundreds of millions in debt. Her father had a stroke again. There is no possibility of making a comeback. Roxanne now has to take care of her stroke-stricken father and find ways to earn money at the same time. The last time I saw her was at a wine party of a certain coal boss. But he doesn't want to tell Tina about these things, so as not to sully her ears. Tina? He called softly. She didn't answer. She was already half asleep. He looked at her gently trembling eyelashes and smiled faintly. He lowered his head and kissed her on the face. Love is like the spring breeze, warming people's hearts. In the future, they will spend countless such nights. The end.